Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes, and I want to start with some news tonight that is not in the headlines. You probably won't see anywhere else. In fact, it may not even cross your radar screen. While most of the political dialogue has been focused on the national polls and a lot of hand-wringing among Democrats over President Joe Biden's re-election chances, we actually just had, last night, 2 elections. Last night, real people actually voted. They went to polling places and cast their ballots in 2 different states. And I submit there is a strong case to be made that those results last night tell us way more about the state of our democracy and the political strength of the pro-democracy forces in this country than all of today's other political headlines put together. So, one of those races was in western Pennsylvania to fill an open state house seat in District 21. Now, this special election was key because it would decide which party controls the narrowly divided Pennsylvania State House. The Democratic candidate, 32-year-old Lindsey Powell, won, as expected, in the heavily Democratic district. But here's the thing to pay attention to. Her margin of victory was even better than expected. The district she's running in, the 21st district, is 17 percentage points more Democratic, more or less, than the country as a whole. If last night's results hold, Lindsey Powell will have won by 30 points. That is what we call an overperformance of 13 points, that D plus 13. Also last night, there was another special election, this one in a very, very different kind of district. This was in New Hampshire, and to me, this is an even more interesting and more representative story. In this district, House District 1, it's a Republican-leaning area. It's near the capital of Concord. It narrowly went for Donald Trump in 2020. That's a Trump district. It leans 6 points further to the right than the nationwide average. But yesterday, Democrat Hal Rafter defeated an extreme MAGA Republican by 12 points, making for a whopping 18-point swing to the left. Now, to be fair, let's be clear here. This is a tiny district. The New Hampshire State House, notoriously, is enormous. It has 400 members, each representing about 3,300 people. This is a small sample. It's a little glimpse into the ginormous landscape of this country. But the really important thing to understand, and the reason that I am leading tonight's show with this news, is that this is not an isolated incident. In fact, it's part of what continues to be one of the most surprising and reliable political trends of the last few years. And this trend has done a much better job of telling us where the pulse of the nation really is than a lot of polling, and certainly a lot of the political discourse. Remember the context here as I speak to you in the fall of 2023. Last year, around this time, right, run up to the midterms, almost everyone in the political media believed the Democrats were going to be shellacked. The conventional wisdom, again, not crazy, was that Joe Biden and his party were focusing on the wrong things. They were talking too much about abortion and about democracy, not enough on inflation and kitchen table issues, and voters just had enough. Democrats were going to lose control of the House and the Senate, and it was going to be a red wave.
Be an analyst for a second. Does it feel like a red wave?
It feels like a red wave, Brian.
You know, your predictions of a red wave are accurate.
Somebody made a surfboard, said the red wave is coming.
Red wave rising.
That red wave that I'm convinced is coming.
The reports I'm seeing show a big red wave coming.
Sleepy Joe just guaranteed a red wave in Pennsylvania.
Democrats are bracing for the worst case scenario, a red tsunami.
We are officially on a red tsunami watch.
Of course, then election night came, and the folks at Fox News and a lot of the political world was shocked. Instead of a red tsunami, Joe Biden and Democrats pulled off the best midterm performance for an incumbent president in a quarter century.
If you're a Republican, things are really not looking very good for you right now. First of all, you underperformed all of these expectations of a red wave or some sort of big victory. Just didn't happen.
This wasn't even a red wave. It's not even a red little ripple in a pond. Everything lined up for Republicans, yet you see them underperforming the way they did.
The only red wave this season is going to be a German Shepherd Commander knocks over the cranberry sauce on our table.
Whoever wrote that joke, nice one. Now, nobody saw it coming, but I submit that they could have. At least in retrospect, it's clear there were some real indicators, and one of the most important was looking at how Democrats were doing in special elections. The trend emerged in the wake of the Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. All of a sudden, Democrats were overperforming in special election after special election all over the country, in Republican areas and in Democratic areas. It began last summer with Nebraska, Minnesota, and New York, and the story continued all through this year. The folks at 538 compiled this chart, 30 different special elections so far in 2023. These are all different districts, legislative state districts, all over the country. Again, in areas with different profiles demographically, different politics. When you look through this list, you see Democrats overperforming their baseline over and over and over again. In fact, that is the case in 24 out of these 30 races. Now, in some instances where you see these big Democratic swings, the Republican candidate still won the election, but they won by a lot less than you would expect. Look at one of the first special elections of the year. It's in Virginia's 24th House District. The Republican won resoundingly by 25 points, but that was a 14-point underperformance for the party. Or look at Pennsylvania's 35th House District. Democrat won by 49 points, overperforming for the district by 37. Even in Kentucky, the Democrats swung Senate District 19 29 points to the left. And we've seen it in Georgia and in Wisconsin, in New York, in Louisiana, in Maine and Tennessee. The combined average of all 30 of these races, again, a somewhat random sample of the country, shows Democrats overperforming the baseline margin by 11 points. This is a real phenomenon. It's really there. It's not polling. It's real. It represents what you might even cheekily call the silent majority. Folks showing up to register their preference in the only polls that really matter. It's the silent majority that showed up in 2020, propelling Joe Biden to victory with a margin of more than 7 million votes. It's the silent majority that also showed up in contested districts and contested statewide races across the country to reject extreme Trump-aligned candidates like Blake Masters and Kari Lake in Arizona and Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania. It's the same silent majority that showed up last night on a random Tuesday in September, right? Like, there's not usually an election. And they showed up in New Hampshire and they showed up in Pennsylvania to vote for center-left, pro-democracy candidates. That says something robust and inspiring about where we stand at this moment nearing another presidential election year. Of course, you know, I know, we remain a very polarized country. And the threat to democracy in the person of Donald Trump and the faction he represents and the forces that he's channeling is real and it is terrifying. But if you feel that way, you are not alone. When you stand in the pro-democracy coalition, remember, you are in the majority. You are with those folks you've never met who don't write about politics for a living and who are out there showing up for special elections on a Tuesday night in September to vote in line with those values.